Yo, 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 brother Tops here, aka Booker T. Back with another episode of New Spurs Order. Today, I'll be your host, and I am joined by two esteemed members of the New Spurs Order gang. Yao, aka Scott Hall. You said, my guy, you good?
Yeah, bro. I need to start getting pre-season ready, man, because it's that time, innit? One more rodeo.
Yeah, man. I'm hopefully taking into account all the different things that are going to be put into this last season to try and collect this chip. But we'll talk about that for another moment.
Must be.
Man, like Ohio, long time no see. Our very
Yo,
own man. What are you saying, my guy?
it's Macho Man. It's good to be back, man. It's good to be back. I've been obviously always supporting from afar, doing what I can online, but life hasn't been letting me pod for a minute. But it's good to it's a good time to be back as well. It's a good time to be back. Lots to talk about.
No, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming down. Obviously, you're always active on the X space for us in the group and also in the group as well whenever we need you. So it's good to have you on back on the pod as usual. Obviously, I'm just going to usual plug the socials. Please follow Touchline Fracas. Please follow New Spurs Order on all social media platforms, whether it be X, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. We're always putting out content. Touchline boys are always putting out content every single week, whether it's a little bit of Arsenal or Chelsea or even a bit of a mishmash of everything on a Monday. And obviously, the New Spurs Order boys put out our stuff every single Saturday as well. Or you can just lock in with us if we put on a live stream like we are tonight. So yeah, with all due respect, we need to get into the big business, which this week. After some deliberation and obviously the removal of Ange from his post on Thursday evening, the club announced the appointment of Thomas Frank as the new head coach, having given him a 3-year deal and obviously relieving him from his post at Brentford. Yeah. Ohio, thoughts? What's your initial thoughts? What's your initial thoughts on the appointment? What did you think of him before? And Yao, when I come to you, maybe what do you think he's going to bring? What do you think he has to offer? If you have any reservations, we can kind of just spitball from there, really.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So obviously we all wanted Ange gone from a while. I think it's fair to say we've probably wanted Ange gone. When we say we, the New Spurs Order and any reasonable community member of ours, probably wanted Ange gone since midway through or the back end of the season before. So when it came to sussing out coaches we wanted, I think it's fair to say there weren't really loads of names thrown about. Obviously, Glasner we were interested in, but prior to the brick went way high after they won the FA Cup. Obviously, Sebastian Hoeneß, his name got thrown about a bit, but there was never really any online link ever, to be honest. And Zaghi got thrown about as well, but he got to do bad quickly. So with Thomas Frank, it was like I think the general vibe from the chat seemed to be, I'm fine with disappointment. I'm fine with this appointment. Sorry, not disappointment. Ash in particular is not with it. You know what I'm saying? But I respect the extremes that Ash stands on when it comes to his opinions. With me personally, I was perfectly fine with it. I wouldn't say I was like ecstatic or anything like that, but like hearing him talk about football, I did mean to watch his high performance pod. I know the high performance pod is a bit odd with Mr. Humphrey. I never got around to watching it, but I did watch a couple of things this week. I think I like the way he talks about football, but I did like the way Ange talks about football. So I'm trying not to get got again. But I think one thing for me, and again, I'm going to name drop Ash again because I think Ash and I have very different viewpoints of the same thing with Thomas Frank. I think he's done a really impressive job with Brentford. Like obviously he didn't get his Leicester fluke and win the league or anything like that. But I think when he took over Brentford, they were just mid-table nothingness really in the Championship. Yeah. Took over, won the league, played pretty decent football. I wouldn't say it was like super attacking possession like a Company's Burnley or anything like that. But he always season on season he's played the football he's needed to play. He's been tactically flexible when Brentford have needed him to be, which I think Ange showed towards the end of his tenure when shit started to hit the fan. But you know, we kind of been asking for it since that preseason game against West Ham when he first got here. But yeah, so like obviously Brentford finished what, like third, I think 13th first season, then it was 9th, then they lost Tony. Did they lose Tony for it? That was when Tony got suspended that year. Lost Rico Henry to his second ACL.
Yeah.
Suffered a bit. Finished 16th.
16th, in 23-24 season, and then last season,
last season back to 13th or 11th. One of them.
10th,
yeah. And you know, I was doing a bit of numbers and that, you know, saying trying to do my own research rather than the Chat GPT thing. Brentford have never been below 16th, like not finished. They've never been below 16th in the Prem, which, and I know that might sound like I'm scraping the bottom of a barrel, but that's also, that in and of itself is somewhat of an achievement for a newly promoted team. Never really been in a relegation scrap like that, to be honest. You know, he's 1 year when, so going back to, you know, when he was playing, when they were in Championship, played the attacking football, came to the Prem, right, we're not going to do the Bielsa thing and just go the Ipswich thing and just keep trying to play and get battered. We're going to keep it solid but not be boring, stay up. They went 13th. They took it to some of the big six teams as well. I think they got 2 wins and 2 draws out of their big 6 games that year as well. Then the following year, you know, they improved their attack, funneled more goals through Tony. Tony left, they struggled a bit. Then they funneled all the goals through Risa and Mbumo. And I think Damsgaard came on leaps and bounds this year. Damsgaard was shit to last year. Like Damsgaard was not.
Yeah, he was basically. He was crying a lot because he weren't getting no game time. Ericsson was slapping him. Iron Man was slapping him over there. So this season, he's really come on leaps and bounds. And obviously, we'll discuss that number 10 hybrid role that he kind of Damsgaard later on in the pod. Yeah, you're absolutely right on that.
Exactly. So yeah, there's some other things I like about Frank, but I'm gonna save a couple. I found a couple interesting stats for later on, so I'll save those. I want to see what Yao thinks as well.
Yeah.
Why? I like that Macho Man's return. The young buck. Yeah, man. Can't say too much. You saved that for the chat. Yeah, me, bro.
If you see me in a range, don't worry about it, man. You know, man.
Hey, if only people did. If only they did. So I've in the lead up to signing Frank, I was like, man, innit? Like, it's not one of those like flamboyant names. I wanted the heavy hitters. I wanted, to be honest, and I said this in the group, I've said this even on the podcast. I was more in line with, like, you know, the Xavis. I didn't think Seb Holness was available, so I didn't even put his, like, you know, those ones where I'm like, whatever, man, I don't even think he's like gonna take a look at us. But obviously Dave put the name in there. I was like, okay, good shout. You know, that's one. Glasner, I'm gonna try and be nice in saying this, but Glasner's like the shiny new artifact on the shelf. You know, like, yeah, fine, he's done great jobs, but I'm like, I've seen this too many times where a man like him will come to Spurs and it just capitulate. So I won't really like feel. None of the names were really making me think, okay, cool. I know all of the names linked in my mind was they could do a better job than Ange. Now, for fans to hear that and be like, fans are gonna hear that and be like, oh, Ange won us the Europa League, and I'm like, this is where you man go wrong in life, yeah, let alone anything else, just in life. You can't tell me a man has done a better job by winning a trophy and doing terrible 70% or even 80% of the time in his tenure. Like, I didn't even got, as most of you man know, I don't ever combine seasons. I don't. I hate it. Like, I always take a new season as a completely new element to look at. There's no way I compare the two, because when you start merging seasons, it becomes an absolute mess. It's when, you know, them fans were doing, oh, that Spurs have got the best, what was it again? The best defense in the league under Poch, when we had the combined season, the 2 seasons. And for me, I'll just get mad at that. But when I had to look at the stats for Ange, It's like, this is horrible. Frank's appointment and the uproar that the fans gave towards this man made me have to go and do like some extensive research into Frank. Again, I'm not going to sit here and lie to anyone and be like, yeah, Frank is one of those guys. But when I done the research into man, I was like, some of the narratives you man have been spewing about this guy is a bold-faced lie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, beyond disgusting lie. And now I have to defend a man that I wasn't even prepared to defend, or I didn't feel like I needed to defend. Yeah, but I have to now because the lies are nasty. This whole thing about him being a boring defensive coach, I'm like, well, that's a lie. That's a lie. One of the fifth highest goal scorers in the league. It's because we don't watch Brentford. Brentford's not the team that we watch week in, week out. If it's not our team facing Brentford, we ain't got time to be watching a Brentford game. Like, honest and truth. Like, we really don't have time for it. But for Brentford to have the fifth highest goal scoring in the league, what are you doing on the offensive side? You know, because they're not, I don't see Brentford as a team that just go machine for machine. So for them to be scoring goals like that, I'm like, okay, cool. Frank. And then I heard him on the, what's the podcast that Macho was saying?
High performance podcast.
Macho, when you get a chance, listen to that one. Because honestly,
yeah, very good. I was
talking,
going to comment on it.
He was talking correct. And I'm like, all right, cool. He's a man that has different systems. I like that because we got players that might work for one system, might not work for another. You got to chop and change. But ultimately, the thing that made me feel like, all right, cool, I'm happy for this appointment to give it time and stuff like that was some of the players that we've already got, he wanted. So it's not like he's coming in there and he's going to be chopping up shop and be like, no. But one particular name, now I'm intrigued to see how that develops, is young Archie Gray. You know, if he can figure out a way to really implement this kid in correctly, I still think we need another 6, by the way. But if he can figure out a way to make this kid, you know, tick in the midfield, that means we've got 2 young bucks that have a plethora of time to build up their experience. Obviously, we want them to hit the ground running. These men can do their thing. And this guy doesn't come across like he's some, in the nicest way of putting it, a dickhead. You know, he doesn't tolerate none of that stuff. He's going to come in there and not be bullied by anybody. The narrative around Frank was what pissed me off the most. I like the fact that, you know, he's not backed down from any of that kind of stuff. Seems to be a well-communicated manager. This whole, and Ash did mention it quite a lot, you know, that, you know, look at what he's done at Brentford. I think what he's done at Brentford is an incredible job. Like, if I'm being
like, when you really look into the minutiae of what he's done in his time there, because people also forget as well, he's not just been manager there since 2019. He's actually been at Brentford since 2016 as a first-team coach and assistant head coach, you know? So this is someone who has been in the English game for quite some time, and he's managed to make a fairly positive name for himself whilst constantly improving season on season on season and effectively making what is, I think, the second lowest paid in terms of wage bill in the league, basically a consistent, solid Premier League side. You know, I mean, there's lots to kind of get into it with regards to, you know, Thomas Frank. You know, he started his career in Denmark as manager for Brøndby. Had a couple seasons there, finished 3rd and 4th consistently. Managed to get himself into assistant sort of role, working in the Premier League for Brentford, and then pretty much since 2019, he's got them really in a way that people can say, okay, this is a team that has looked consistently difficult to beat, whilst having lots of different plans to be able to beat teams, to be able to counteract teams, whilst being also fairly adaptable in his nature. The Premier League is a constantly roving, constantly moving animal. And even with the loss of players and injuries that he's got to players, he still managed to get them playing in a way that is positive, that is structured, that seems to have some level of tactical nous. And he's also brought in lots He's also brought in lots of positive aspects and modern aspects of the game, which I think is very important, which we'll kind of discuss on as well. One of the big things I think is really, really huge to discuss is, whilst you can talk about what he brings from a tactical perspective and a coaching perspective, because he does have quite large experiences coaching, I think one of the big things that he brings is the intangibles, the extras, the little tidbits that players, I think, kind of forget, because I think nowadays players are almost put in this robotic situation where they have to be in this position, they have to be in this area, they have to be in this zone, they have to take this touch. And sometimes it's easy to forget that players also respond to things like, what is the culture of that team like? What is the attitude? Do I have the passion to do this job? Do I have the hard work to do this job? And if anyone gets the chance to, honestly, you should just try and give that High Performance podcast a listen, because one of the big things, it's funny that you said the comment that you said earlier on, yeah. One of the big things that he said he tried to implement when he first got to Brentford was that he wanted there to be a culture of no dickheads. He wanted there to be a culture where it was guys who were almost stalwarts of the team that people could go to, people like Wissa and Norgard and Ben-Mee, guys who were experienced, but also guys that could support a lot of the younger players. And I think little things like the intangibles for this stuff is also very important, because it just means that you're kind of encompassing everything. You're making sure that everyone is locked in with regards to what is being said, the messages that's being passed through. And I think that's important, because even in a club like Brentford, who there isn't much expectation, but if you look at what they've done in terms of the players that he's improved, the money that they've been able to generate from those players, it's all been under Thomas Frank. It's all been under Thomas Frank. And then you take into account what he's done from a modern perspective, how he's brought in the statistical importance in the game, the data that you get from things like fitness, from running stats, from the use of set pieces, even something so silly like I think I read a stat today. Up to this season, no team had ever scored more than one goal from a throw-in in the Premier League. Last season, Brentford were the only team that scored 6 goals from throw-ins. So lots of these little things he's been doing over time to kind of give his team the edge. Whilst I think it's easy to look at Brentford and think, okay, they're a little bit boring. They sometimes go 3 at the back. They sometimes go 4 at the back. You have to actually take into account the context of the kind of player that they have available to them, but also what they've been able to do. Like I said, they're the second least highest paid wage bill in the league after Ipswich, but they scored the 5th most highest goals in the league this season. So, you know, it's not as if they can't play expansive stuff. And I do feel that, like, it might not be, in my opinion, it might not be the most luxury and the most exciting appointment, but I think this kind of appointment, it gives me hope that we're looking in the direction of stability. I think that's the one big thing I think we need, because under Ange, it was great at times, but I just felt the tumultuous nature of us as a football team, even us as a club a little bit, it didn't really fill me with much confidence. And I never, ever, ever, like, I've always been big on this point in the New Spurs Order group, but I just never, ever felt there was a level of control that I felt comfortable with, that a top team, in my opinion, even if they're in their ascendancy or their trajectory, that they should have. And I think under Ange, we just didn't. And I kind of feel positive that from what I've read and what I've seen and how he does come across, like Ahaya said, it's not easy to sometimes listen to these guys and think, okay, maybe they're just giving us what we want to hear. But actually, he's been able to show us, and his trajectory has been slowly kind of positive. And I think as well, it's also really important, like Sai has written in the comments, which we'll go on to now, that he's actually been able to bring his staff with him, which is really, really important, because those are the guys that kind of helped him in the time that he's been in English football and in the league. So from the correspondence from Tottenham, he's brought with him Justin Cochrane, who's the first team assistant coach, Chris Haslam, who's the head of performance and first team assistant coach, Joe Newton, first team coach analyst, and Andreas Georgeson, who's the first team assistant coach arriving from Manchester United. Because, you know, lads, it's United.
Yeah, man. I feel like before we get on to be fair, I want to take this point and then link it into the staff. So just to finish off some of the other stuff that impressed me with Thomas Frank. I was watching a couple of videos on him this week, and it was something he said. I think he was having dinner with like Gary Lineker or something, hot like Gary Lineker. He said, I want to play offensive football, and I always think we have this style, but at the same time, I have to think this is who I have. So I have to do what's best for the players that I have, whilst also developing them at the same time. And and the reason I like that is because he obviously has whatever philosophy he has in mind, but he's clearly self-aware enough to be like, okay, this might be plan A, but I don't quite have all the pieces for plan A. So I'm gonna have to make plan A2, plan B1, which I felt was missing quite a lot last season. I don't want this to turn into an Ange bitch fest or an Ange pylon, but there were so many times where it just felt like what you're trying to do doesn't fit what you have. Like you're trying to use Son as this touchline winger when we need him close to the goal. You're using Solanke as this pressing machine when he's suddenly too knackered and can't get into the 6-yard box. The only thing that I felt, in all honesty, Ange was like, right, this is what I have and this is how I'm going to use it, is turning Brennan Johnson into a back post goal machine, because he kind of thought you can't really do anything else. So that was quite tactically astute from him. But anyway, other things. So I watched the day in the live video of Thomas Frank, and Justin Cochran was there, Joe Newton was there, and half the video was Joe Newton leading an analyst session. And I don't want to sound like, oh my god, I watched an analyst session, it was amazing, because I'm sure a lot of first team analyst coaches do this. But they were going over like this 0-0 draw they had of Liverpool this season just gone. And one thing I liked, again, at risk of making it sound like an Ange bitch fest, remember when Eric Dyer was like, I don't feel like we do any you can piss off. I feel like when Eric Dyer said, we don't do any like tactical coaching or whatever, and no matter what you think of Eric Dyer, however you want to interpret that is quite concerning. Now, watching this video, they were going over how, like, obviously they wanted to try and win the game because they're at home, but they appreciate it's Liverpool. They were like, this is the best transition team in Europe. Their whole plan was nullify Trent, nullify Salah. So they were like, yeah, Salah only got like 3 shots off. All of them were blocked. There was another point where I think like Joe Newton leads on the clips that he brings for Frank, and then Frank thought a clip was something else, and Joe Newton was like, nah, this is where we got caught in transition after such and such happened. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, how many times did we suffer in transition last season? It's little things like that. Like, this isn't some like groundbreaking moment or anything like that. Like, look at what I'm salivating over. Analysts defending us in transitions. This is what I've been reduced to. You know what I'm saying? But little things like that, I'm a bit more content. You know what I'm saying? Because Frank himself said the main task for that Liverpool game was to stop transition. But anyway, couple of stats just from Brentford. One thing I found interesting. So let me try it again. So there are 10 clubs in Premier League all time that have positive goal difference. Brentford's one of them. They scored the most headed goals in the Prem last year, and this was at least, so by March, I think they scored 10, so it's probably more. You won't believe who their set piece coach was in 2015.
Who's it?
Gianni Vio.
It's Torres Clark.
Yeah,
the linkage.
I'm not gonna say he's coming back, but at least I know Frank's got taste. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Frank has already brought back one of the previous brothers that used to work for us. Jason.
Yeah, he did.
Black boys. Yeah, we all black boys.
I know they got taste like that. And then this one I thought was kind of crazy. Note that so since 1995, Brentford, no other team has reached 50 wins in the Premier League faster than Brentford since 1995. I can't believe that's not a well-known stat. Last season, so the only 3 teams to not lose a game by more than 2 goals was Arsenal, Liverpool, and Brentford. And how many times were we getting clapped on occasion? They had 5 consecutive away wins last year, which was more than anyone in the league. Context, it was Southampton, Palace, West Ham, Leicester, Bournemouth, but how many of those games would we have lost away from home? Something to think about. And their Big 6 record, if we minus the Spurs games, is actually almost identical to ours since 2021. So since 2021, we've won 10, drawn 7, lost 23. Brentford have won 9, taken out Tottenham games, won 9, drawn 7, lost 24. In 2022, they won 6, drew 3, lost 3. Then obviously the year they lost Tony, they lost Rico Henry. Boom Boomer hadn't started firing just yet. There were a couple more L's, but I'm like, if the Big Six record is identical with such a much lower wage bill, less quality in the squad, then I can only imagine what's going to happen when we give you more quality and a slightly higher wage bill.
Wait, just before we go on, we lost 23 games against the Big Six.
It was 23. I did the maths. I went through it step by step, and I did the count. I counted it 3 times. It was 23 Big Six games. We went 3-2-5, 2-2-6, 2-3-5, 3-0-7 was our record.
Crazy, absolutely crazy,
nuts, innit?
Like, I mean, the one thing that we can clearly see is that Thomas Frank has the ability of getting the best out of his players. They don't necessarily need to be world beaters, but he doesn't even need to impose any sort of rigid tactical identity on the players, because I think he has the ability as a coach to just maximize through these players, through coaching and motivation and maximizing their potential to be able to get them to play in a way that is positive, but also defensively sound. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't think that sounds too difficult. I don't think that sounds too asking. And still, for 2 seasons under Ange, it was like, we're going to cool down at any moment here? Are we going to at least slow down or take the throttle off a little bit? No. Okay, cool. But with regards to the coaching staff, I think one of the big things that we definitely at New Spurs Order champion is the ability to bring the man them through. I, for one, love that we have such a diverse support group. I love that we have such a diverse group in the New Spurs Order. And honestly, it low-key fills me with joy that we actually have someone like Justin Cochrane on the coaching staff as the assistant coach now for Tottenham. For people who don't know, Justin Cochrane, he's had kind of a seasoned sort of career, over about 11 seasons, playing over 200 appearances as a pro, to which he then became a youth coach at Tottenham. He coached the under-16s, under-15s, under-17s, England, and then became a youth sort of development coach. And then as time went on, he became the head of player development and coaching at Man United, before then actually being promoted to the head of coaching for Brentford, the head of coaching for Brentford back in 2022. And since then, he's been basically one of the senior coaches and assistant coach to Thomas Frank. And he's also this year been brought on as one of the coaches for the England setup under Thomas Tuchel. And I just think it's really important that we kind of champion this kind of appointment. One, because this is a guy who, when he was the academy coach, was able to see guys like Scarlett and Divine and kind of watch these guys come through the ranks. And he was able to see that these guys had talent, but also he was able to do his own thing and in his own right, make his own name. So it almost feels kind of full circle that we have a guy who looks like us, who is qualified enough and has seen the game and has the experience to come back to now be given the role as assistant coach at Tottenham in what I would say is probably the largest role of his career, alongside the England role that he's picked up with Thomas Tuchel. What do you mind think of this? What do you mind take to Justin Cochrane being back in the Tottenham setup?
My assistant coach is black. My assistant coach is from Ends. My assistant coach is from the 9, and I love it. And I absolutely love it. Jokes aside, though, I feel like, I think something I mentioned in the pod was that, I would like a new generation of, Spurs fans of different cultures to come through. And I felt like the parade is something that could definitely spark that. Like, it started round the corner from my old primary school it was diverse when I went there ages ago, but it's a lot more diverse now still. And I just hope that I just wanted to be like, remember we got that day of school because Tottenham won the Europa League and now I support Tottenham, and then I want them to be watching Tottenham and they'll see Thomas Frank and they'll be like, oh, who's the manager? Who's the assistant coach that you're talking about? Justin Cochrane. Oh, he looks a bit like me. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, not that I ever wanted to be a football referee, but we all looked at RIP him, but we all looked at Uncle Uriah Rennie a certain way. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care what anyone says. Representation is always going to matter, and we've always championed, the path of black coaches on here. We've spoken about, the Chris Ramseys. We brought through who's my man that was manager at Newcastle, the mixed race guy, manager at Newcastle.
Chris Hughton.
Obviously, Ledley King did a bit of coaching, does a coach now. Chris Powell as well.
Yeah. Jermaine Defoe's doing his coaching stuff as well.
Yeah, Defoe came back as well, and I think I watched a clip earlier because Defoe's doing Soccer Aid, and Defoe was talking about just how good Cochrane is as a coach, and what he said one of his best things is his man management skills and his ability to communicate with people differently. And I think people have things to say about the new age footballer, but I think if you can find different ways to communicate with different players, I think that's like an unreal string to your bow. I saw a little clip earlier when he was talking about his time at United, and he was talking about Garnacho, funnily enough, and we don't really rate Garnacho in the chat, but you can't be bad at football if you come through Carrington. You know what I'm saying? Facts are facts. And I think he said the way he explained it, he was like, Garnacho was talented and he wanted to break through, but obviously he was competing against Sancho, Rashford, Anthony, and there was another wing. Obviously, that doesn't sound like too much competition on paper now, but at the time, it still would have been hard. And he said to Garnacho, he was like, "Look, you have certain weaknesses and limitations, but what you are very good at is you're excellent in transition. You can take a 1-touch, 2-touch finish. These are the things we're going to make you work on, and so you can get into the first team." And then there was other things like Garnacho kept trying to chop in on his left foot, and he said, "Listen, man, like in this game, a couple of times." I want you to just keep on that left foot, just keep taking a left foot shot, And he said now when he watches Garnacho score off his left foot rather than cutting inside, he's like, look, I'm not going to take credit for it because obviously he did the work, but it's those kind of little things that you can tell. I know coaches should care, like it should be like a prerequisite for coaches to care. But when I listen to Justin Cochrane talk, when I hear the stories about him, I'm like, this is someone who actually cares about player development. And me, I've been on the Alfie Devine train since 2019. I know Justin Cochrane rates Alfie Devine. Everyone who doubts my boy Alfie Devine, I need you to remember what side you're on. When Justin Cochrane decides, I need you to remember what side you're on, yeah? But all that aside, like I think it's just really, really nice that he's just been on the pathway. He's done the hard yards. There was the rumor Brentford wanted to keep him as well as the head coach. And I did say on the X account, I'd love Justin Cochrane to come through, but if it means we get a black British Premier League manager from Ends, I'll happily accept that as well. Do you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
man, I'm proud.
I'm absolutely for it. Obviously, as well, we have our own resident coach, Dave, which is I think is a huge advocate for these kind of roles, especially for guys that look like us, and obviously as well, if they clearly are qualified to do so and they have the charisma and the ability to do so, more props to them. Even more so to back a manager like Thomas Frank, and touchwood, he'll take us on to that next level, whilst being able to bring in some of these younger players that he's had the experience of working with before. And obviously that will hopefully open the road as well in the bigger sort of subject for getting more black managers in the pro scene, to be honest with you. With regards to this week's news with regards to transfers, information has come out now that the official correspondence has been put out regarding Thomas Frank. And it does look like Spurs have now showed some level of interest in a certain Frenchman that I was being told that you can't go band for band with certain teams from Manchester. But all of a sudden, my team from Tottenham is going band for band with certain heritage clubs. And I would like to know if you, man, think there's any validity in the possibility of our manager bringing over a certain Frenchman from West London to North London? What do you man think about that?
What I'm going to say is this, yeah. Man support Spurs. I have the privilege of being born and raised in Tottenham. In North London, there's a certain demeanor that we have. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for everyone, but it is where it is in North London. We ask man on a regular basis, are you comfortable in your own ends? I'm comfortable. Trust me. Put me anywhere. Put me in Braga. I promise you, I'm comfortable, bro. I don't care where I go. Yeah. If Frank wants to get with the North London attitude, all he needs to do is tell Brian, make your way on the Victoria line. Let's get it cracking. Because the truth of the matter be this. I know United pay big bucks, I know, big money and all that kind of stuff. We've got money. We just choose not to spend it in a particular way. So I'm just going to use like the aerial aspect as a reason for why a man should come to London or stay in London because he's already there, as opposed to going to Manchester. Brother, what is up there? Yeah, like legitimately, what is up there for you to even make the trek, be up there? When you want to party, you got to spend 4 hours to come back down to London. Bro, stop it. If Manchester was the lit place to be, Rooney wouldn't be smashing grannies, bruv. Stay in London, Brian. It's the smarter decision to make. And plus, because you're of Cameroonian descent, I'm sure there'll be a few restaurants around for you to, be at home, bruv. Don't go to Manchester. Listen to Frank.
Trust me, man. Trust me.
An engine, bruv.
Ohio, what do you think of him as a player? Because, last season, man, he put up some numbers, man. Like, he played 38 games. He scored 20 goals. He had 7 assists. This guy had an average rating of 7.5, played over 3,500 minutes in the Premier League. And from what I understand, Mbeumo is only
25.
25.
25.
What kind of player is this that we could potentially be getting at Spurs?
Before Brother Ohio speaks, I need to state this.
Land it, bro.
Aye, he's also a fraudulent boldster. So he's Jadakiss. Yeah. That's what I'm gonna say, bro. Make of that what you want.
That's so funny. What I will say is, I will agree that anyone that actively chooses to be bold is a dangerous man, or is a man capable of many things. That's all I'll say. You know what I'm saying? So I really like Brian Mbeumo. I think when we used to where people in the chat would say, "Oh, go get Mbeumo, go get him," he was one of those players I'd be like, we wouldn't be able to afford him, we can't get him, etc., etc. Now I changed the manager. Suddenly, this is all very different. One thing I do like about Mbeumo, he will let the thing go. When it's time to shoot, he will shoot. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I can't lie, I feel like a lot of our players who can shoot just are allergic to it at times. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously, if he needs to shoot, he will. He can create space for others. He can create chances for others. Obviously, him and Visa had a really, really good link up. He also had a really good link up with Was it him? Was it Mbeumo and Tony, or was it more Wisa and Tony?
No, it was Mbeumo. It was all. Yeah. Wisa had a great partnership with all three.
Yeah,
but Mbeumo and Tony had a great partnership as well.
Yeah, so it's good to see that Mbeumo can be the main man. He can link with the main man to become the lieutenant. You know what I'm saying? I think he brings something quite different to the rest of our front line in terms of our left-footed attacking players. As much as I like Kulusevski on a good day, level of consistency isn't there for me. Sometimes just not dangerous enough with his left foot. I'm really happy that at the potential of the sign. And obviously, he could sign for United tomorrow. But Dysonomics, if you're listening, I've seen you on the account. I can see you trying to small boy us. Yeah.
And
you know what?
That's
okay, because we all grew up in a certain generation where United could do what they want, take players off us when they've worn our shirt already, They're trying to take, but we might have to just take Mbeumo off you, man. Yeah, this is a new era. Just so you know. So Dysonomics, if I see Mbeumo wearing the number 11 at the top, at the Beyonce Stadium, yeah,
I'm grabbing him, man. I'm grabbing him. I'm grabbing him.
Wallahi, you're finished.
It's gonna be.
Wallahi, it's gonna be a war in the clubs.
Listen.
It's gonna be.
Man said Mbeumo is not afraid to let the thing go. Stutter. I let the thing go. Chucky Mundo ready to listen. We not even get into the bars because these men ain't ready for the thing. Head is shaking all over the place. Let me tell you this right now, yeah. Like I told man when we won the Europa League, certain things can't happen because I will be unbearable. Yeah. When I said, man, we needed that trophy, we got the trophy. Man saw the parade, saw that we have bare fans. Okay, so we're not a small boy club. This is why I keep telling fans, take note from Everton fans. Now, I need to say this with a disclaimer. I'm not condoning violence. But the Everton fans had a decent understanding when they had to grips up their chairman and let them know what we're seeing on the pitch. This team can't run, yeah. Our fans need to now get that vim a little bit and let Levy know, listen, you haven't gone Turkey yet and replaced the follicles on your cranium. Get with the program fast, because I'm going to say something right now. If we get Mbeumo, great, amazing, banter. But that can't be the end of it.
No. Job ain't done. Job ain't finished.
If I see one signing and that's it for the rest of the summer, the crash out is going to be of epic proportions. Like, I'm talking, like, if you think I won't do it, I promise you it's the best thing that I don't go to the stadium. A crash out would be immense. Tobias has already been threatening to do stuff in airports. I don't know what he's going to do while he's in Joburg, flipping losing his whole freaking mind. Because I'm telling you, this man cannot do one transfer and leave it at that. It has to be, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't think I'm going to be happy to certain individuals in a shirt. We haven't said his name yet, but we know who he is. 3 letters. Eze. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, man. In order to free up the funds, we might have to we might have to talk about that later, man. But the way I see it is that this level of player, finally, we can actually say is a needle mover. This is the kind of player, and I've always been an advocate. There are good enough players in this league which will cost you a premium that will improve your team tenfold.
Immediately.
They will improve your team tenfold because they have the know-how of the league. They have the league's number in many respects. And someone like him, being able to score 20 and 7 in the Brentford team that finished 10th, alongside another guy that scored 18 or 19. Listen, man.
Crazy.
He just needs to put that shit on, man.
Solanke didn't even come close to that.
He just needs to put that.
No disrespect to Solanke.
Relax, man. Yeah. Relax.
No.
Too much already, man. Relax.
Let me land, because it sounded like I was sending him for man because he's Nigerian. That's not the case. Yeah. Can I land? Yeah. There's 2 Nigerians now looking at me like I'm about to shoot. I ain't shooting, bro. Relax, bro. I'm saying the numbers that I expected to Solanke to get, he didn't get because the manager done him dirty. Now we got a manager that wants to facilitate all the gunmen. Yeah, I'm not saying Solanke's a gunman, but he could be a gunman under this manager. But what I am saying is, listen, Mbeumo done it at Brentford. I know man are going to be like, Solanke done it at Bournemouth. Solanke done it in a system where it was funneled through him. I'm talking, of course. I'm talking about Mbeumo doing it at Brentford where the system wasn't even made to make him the main target for the end of attacks. Like, he wasn't. Like, he was literally a wide forward that, just as Ohio said, let the thing go. And boy, he scored bare goals. Like, let's be honest. 20 goals in the Premier League.
It's no mean feat. No mean feat. You know, outside of Son, outside of Kane, like in my lifetime, can't be. It is no mean feat. It doesn't happen very often. And for you to do it as a player who's not even a top 6 team, being able to do that with such ease, I mean, the props is there. And honestly, even for the price that he's been put at, do you want to know how much they signed him for? Do you know what's so scary about this?
5? Was it 5 million or something?
They signed him for £5 million. You know.
You know what's mad about that? We signed a player for 5 million. He hit the stars, and then it just went kaput.
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult
our
one.
business model is horrid. Like when was outside of actually Kane is the last one.
Yeah,
Kane's
obviously.
the last big sale. Think of the players we've had, and Kane's the last one. Son might not even go for peace. Just letting you know.
I think he could, but
He could.
that's another topic that we can
Exactly.
go
He could, but whether he does is a different story.
This is quite a good question, and thank you, Papa Blackson, for asking this. My guys, who do you think are the winners and losers of the Frank appointment? I'm a bit worried for Van der Ven as he's not the best box defender, and I can see him more at left back. I'm gonna say, Yao, if you give us the losers, Ohio, you can give us the winners. Maybe 2 each, possibly.
How you go first?
In terms of winners, I think the biggest winner is going to be Archie Gray, for obvious reasons. Obviously, Brentford had agreed the 40 million. Thomas Frank obviously had a plan for him, and I don't think Thomas Frank is the. I can't tell you what Brentford's record signing is, but I don't think Thomas Frank is the kind of guy to approve for 40 million at a Moneyball club like that and not have
record signing is Lewis Potter, 16.
Well, there you go. They nearly tripled their club record signing for Archie Gray, and I can't imagine Thomas Frank not approving of that if he didn't have a plan for him. So Spurs fans, I'm warning you, don't expect another 6. I think if one of Bentancur and or Basuma goes, then maybe, but I think Archie Gray is going to be the big winner. And then the second winner, I really hate to say it, but I think it's going to be Brennan Johnson. I think Thomas Frank will see like him and Justin Cochrane will be like, look, this guy has a lot of limitations, but give him a sniff in the 6-yard box and he's bagging. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to find a way to get him a lot closer to goal. I think any coach worth his sauce isn't really going to have Johnson out on the touchline trying to dribble when that's not his bag, like at all. I think, whether we like it or not, Johnson scored some big goals. Whether, to be honest, I don't like it, but Johnson scored some big goals.
Yeah.
Whether you think he got a touch or not in the Europa League final doesn't matter because that own goal doesn't happen without his pressures.
Yeah.
So I think they'll find a way to get him closer to goal, create a lot easier chances for him. And boy, if Brennan Johnson scores 15 league goals, let's just do our penance now, man, because it might happen. It might happen.
No, I hear you. And yeah.
First loser for me would be Basuma.
Okay.
I think he's in big trouble. Not just off the back of like how this season went for him, but I don't think he's the kind of player that would work in a system that changes or could change multiple times in a game. He tends to switch off quite a bit. So I think Basuma would be in big trouble. That's one of the losers. And I'd go with the second loser might be I'm gonna go with this one. It's definitely Richard. That boy is done. That boy he ain't surviving. He ain't surviving at all. So yeah. And I'd say them too. I know what Papa Blankson is saying about Mickey. I don't think he'll be.
I disagree a little bit with Papa Blankson.
I think it's a bit harsh on how Mickey's a sit.
I've looked. I mean, we'll probably go in another pod. We'll go into the tactical perspective with regards to Frank. But one of the things that the back four do get is a lot of the ball. They are very patient. I feel like the 2 centre backs will always be supported by a third midfielder who drops in, almost like a third centre back.
Similar to the 4-1, or was it the 4-2-3 that 3 that Poch used to play.
Yeah, where like Dyer or when Wanyama would like usually come back in that, and also I also think in that role, it will be better for Van der Ven in many regards. Whilst he's not an amazing box-to-box defender, he's not going to be asked of as physically. It's not going to be as demanding for him from a defensive perspective.
From a sprinting perspective.
Yeah, with regards to sprinting and covering large spaces. So I think there's lots of things to think about. I mean, if I'm thinking about winners and losers, I think Maddison, the 10 is kind of given a free hybrid-y type role. That's very close to the striker, and the ball is constantly funneled into them. I also feel the way that I've seen him turn Lewis Potter, who was effectively a left winger, into a left back, I think it will work in our favour for Udogie. I think Udogie is an incredible athlete, and for a long time, I've never understood why you want an agile, 6 foot, fairly nimble, quick player like Udogie receiving the ball on the half turn under Ange. It's always confused me. If I'm talking losers, yeah, I think Richarlison is a loser purely because he likes dynamic attackers who are good in transition and are very effective in the final third. And I think if you look at Sharda, if you look at Wissa, if you look at Mbeumo, if you look at the guys that he had previously, Tony, if you look at the French lad that's always trolling people that he got, what's his name?
Morpay.
Morpay. If you look at Watkins when he first had him coming up through the Premier League, these are all dynamic type of attackers who are happy in the transition. I don't see Richarlison being that kind of attacker. And yeah, you're right, Ohio. It does suit someone like Johnson. Someone who I also think we need to look at it a little bit closely is Vicario. Like I said,
I'm so glad you said that.
He does a lot. What a lot of the build-up is patient build-up, and one of the big things that he's happy to do is to just wait and then hit teams in transition. And one of the things Brentford had last season, they were the top 2 teams in the league for having the most amount of touches in their own penalty box, and the keepers were usually in the top 3 players that had touches in games. So that's how many times they used to really recycle the ball through the back four, through the defense. And sometimes, whilst that can be a little bit risky, you want your goalkeeper to be fairly okay on the ball so that if they need to hit it long, they can hit it long. And if they need to recycle it well, they can do so. And obviously, I know that he's a good shot stopper and he's improving at his set pieces, but that's one thing about his game that I just really hope doesn't really show. And actually, it weirdly could lean towards Kinski being a better option. But again, Kinski needs his head checked in many respects, to be honest with you, as a goalkeeper. But those are my guys, really, in terms of winning and losing. So, yeah, thank you for that question. That was a really good question, actually, Power Plankson. The next topic we'll go on is the final comment from one of the team captains this week, Kuti. Interestingly, the timing of this was somewhat comical, I would say. But he came out in response to Ange obviously being sacked. And obviously it was in time with, or soon after, when Thomas Frank was appointed. Yeah. And I'll read the quote for verbatim. Ange, thank you for these 2 incredible seasons. You're a fantastic coach, but above all, a great person who deserves the best. From day one, you've paved the way despite the many obstacles that has always existed and always will exist. Beyond everything, we won a trophy and we went down in history of this beautiful club, which is the only thing that matters. I wish you the best because you deserve the best. Thank you for everything, Kuti. Mandem. Who is he shooting at there?
Boy.
Who's he shooting at there? Because I was feeling shots left, right, and centre. I was feeling pumped left, right, and centre. Pop, 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 pop. And to be honest with you, I don't know, man. What do we think of the timing? What do you think of the words? Who do you think he was shooting at? And, you know, in the context of where we are now, having won the Europa League, having appointed Frank, what do you think this means from Kuti's perspective?
I think this is one of those situations. One of my favorite phrases in life was Rashford would say, as LeBron would say. That's my favorite saying. Two things can be true at once. Like in all facets of life, two things can be true at once. I think taking a shot at the chairman like that is superb. Like that's ballsy, big cojones on him. Like I have so much time for that. I think footballers need to be a bit more honest or afforded, the room to be a bit more honest about this kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Same way in basketball, like people are calling out owners and coaches all the time. Like we all pay attention to American sports here. The superstar players are always allowed to say stuff about the coach and the chairman and the presidents and stuff like that, and we love it. And I'd love more of that over here. It's just not how the English game works.
Yeah.
But that's the only bit I like about it. I think the time in itself, you can't tell me that wasn't intentional. You can't tell me that wasn't underhanded and tactical. Like, and at the end of the day, you're one of the vice captains. I don't. You're in the leadership group. Like, why is one of the leaders in our club potentially, if Son is sold next week, in 2 weeks, the potential captain of our club, whether he wants to go to Atleti or not? I know they've got Teo Hernandez coming through now. Why is someone who's meant to be one of the prime examples of the squad making such a statement? What, like 23 minutes after Thomas Frank was announced? Like, the first thing you've done when the new coaches come in is you've immediately undermined him, whether that was part of your intention or not. Like, and it was. Do you know what I mean? And even if I look beyond that, even I look in the statement when he goes, which is the only thing that matters. I think what people need to remember is, like, yeah, we see footballers, playing 100 miles an hour week on week, and we don't really hear from them a lot. They're not infallible. Like, they're human beings, and a lot of human beings don't have sense. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't tell me that winning the trophy is the only thing that matters, and that's why he should have stayed. Do you know what I'm saying? Because like, footballers are humans, and humans are fickle. Like, I promise you, if Thomas Frank comes in and them not realize in their first preseason game that they're not getting slapped in the transition anymore, they'll be like, "Raw, we can actually defend a half space. Crazy. These men will forget about these. They won't forget about Ange. Let me get this. They won't forget about Ange, but they'll be like, okay, well, this was never. This didn't happen for like 18, 24 months whilst Ange was here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but back to Romero, I think the statement in and of itself, for the most part, I don't mind it, but he should have just said it on the day or the day after Ange cut, like everyone else. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, picking that time and that's rubbish, man. Like, that I can't respect.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, where you on this? Having knowing that he's a vice captain, saying what he said. Like, it's funny. Before I saw this comment, I actually used to think the rashness to which he would speak to the media, I just thought that's him. He's not that really media trained. He kind of just says things off the cuff. Whatever time you catch him, that's whatever he's going to say. But when I saw this post, I was like, nah, this ain't it, man. Nah, like this ain't it. Not now anyway, man. Not now. I don't know, yeah, where are you on this right now?
He's not the only player this season, or the season gone, to send subliminals or send a shot at
the ownership.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm all for, by the way. I know there's some part of our fan base that seems to believe that that's disrespectful. But I'll give you this tidbit in terms of whether it's disrespectful or not. If you go into work and you try to do your best on a daily basis, but the ownership of the company you work for are consistently putting obstacles in your way, or that's how you feel you're taking it, you will get to a point where you will cuss these people. And when you go into your one-to-one meetings, you will bring it up. And these one-to-one meetings do get mentioned to the higher-ups. They just are anonymous. But you will mention, your grievances towards certain things that are going on around the company. So it's not really disrespectful, the shot or the subliminal about the ownership, because it's been very well known. The disrespectful part is the timing.
Yeah.
Whom's do you think you are? Yeah. Let me explain this to a lot of fans that don't seem to understand this. And I'll mention this I'll mention this to the cows come home. I don't really care. Ange won a cup. Ended a 17-year drought of a trophy. Oh, you are pieces of shit and bums because no other team in league history, this is record breaking. It's not like you were 17th with 10 defeats. This is record breaking. You had 22 defeats and you're the only team in league history, in world football history, to have that amount of defeats and not get relegated. I don't want to hear fans tell me, oh, if there was any chance of us being relegated, we would have concentrated on the league. I never in my life want to ever experience the season we've just gone through ever again. So for those fans that are like, yeah, if winning a trophy every year means we have to finish 17th, I'll go for it. No, you really wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Yeah,
thank you.
This is a man that's meant to be our vice captain. I'm going to use this guy as a comparison. I'm going to use two guys as a comparison. Yeah. And I know people know where I'm going with this. One guy arrived here 10 years ago, a little bit quiet. First season was absolutely poor. Told the manager I want to leave. Manager told him no, stay. 9 years later, even though he was cooked, gave us the worst 21 minutes in a final. He got the trophy. That guy is the club captain. One of the most respectable individuals, despite whatever you think, one of the most respectable individuals in that locker room, without a shadow of a doubt. Another guy broke through 2014, 2015. Top goal scorer. Went on Sky Sports, sat with an English legend in Gary Neville, and told the world, I think you man could get me out of this club for 100 mil. That's what he did. He actually gave a price. And when he wasn't sold, well, he waited, said, I'm not signing a new contract, and bounced to Germany. That, for me, was very disrespectful. Fela Kuti, when he signed, this guy, in the four seasons he's been with Spurs, has yet to give us a full season. A full season. I don't even think if you combine all his games that he's played in the league, it would come up to 2 seasons worth of matches. And this is the guy, this here, the vice captain, he's the guy that thinks, yeah, I have enough pulling the game to send shots for the club. Brother, we've just got a new manager. All of this talking that you should have done that at the final whistle of the cup. Not wait 2 weeks and a bit, wait to hear a new manager. Don't do that. I'm at the point now where Romero's got 2 options. And it's very simple. Have an absolute blinder next season. And I mean blind, like all-time blinder next season. And leave next season summer. Or shut your mouth and receive everything that you're about to get this season. Let me make this very clear to you, very clear. If anybody has communication with Thomas, the Frank engine, I'm now giving him a piece of advice. Let Fela Kuti know you are no dickhead. Let this man know that on the day you were appointed, he disrespected you. And in North London, we're not taking no damn disrespect no more. Frank better let him know those first 10 games, that first block, you're fighting for your spot. This ain't a walk in the park no more. You need to earn your stripes now. Because man was vice captain and doing all of this on release day. On flipping press release day for the new manager. Wallpaper, everything. They even got one of Frank's better photos because that guy don't photo well. But they got one of his better photos and man wants to put out that statement. And in the statement, he wants to praise a manager that picked up more defeats than victories across a 2-year tenure. Well, it looks like the club are doing a lot of changes, as we can see. New manager, new staff, analyst, medical team. Looks like a lot of changes are coming. And that's great. We need it. We most certainly do need it.
Facts.
And I'm not going to sit here and say that the way certain players have gone after that man, Daniel Levy, is incorrect. Because outside of the business side of things, and I can respect everything Daniel Levy has done in terms of where he's taken Tottenham from as a brand and where they are now. But that's where the buck stops. Because I don't support Tottenham for that Coda-sized tracksuit that came out for the final. By the way, please put that on the store so that I can buy it. You know what I'm saying? I support Tottenham for what 11 men do when they cross that white line on that green grass. That's why I support this club. So if you cannot build a team that competes on all 4 fronts, I don't want to hear about none of this, we're just focusing on the cup nonsense. I want a team, a big team, by the way, that competes on the league and the cups. If you can't do that, then get out of our club. Until then, you're going to have this problem consistently, not only just from the players now, because they're out, but also from the fans. You can't keep this stuff going that way. Like, let's be honest, we've had this ownership for 24 years. A lot of the fans are fed up with just the ownership, and not just the players. They're fed up with the ownership. And
I think it's fair to be fed up with the ownership. And whilst it's fair to be fed up with ownership, Kuti can say what he can say, but he can't also not see himself as accountable. Like, I think I saw a quote today from Harry Redknapp, which I thought was quite apt, where he basically said, you know, a lot of these players have come out about how much of an amazing manager Ange was and how much they loved him. If they loved him so much, why didn't they play harder? Why didn't they try? You know, why did they let him lose 22 games in a season? Why did they let him choose 26 games in a complete whole season? You know, like sometimes I do kind of worry about where these guys are, like mentally, especially when it comes to these specific different moments, and maybe they don't look at the bigger picture, you know. But again, we can't really speak on this. These are pro footballers in these different environments with the right coaching, the right minders and friends and family, all kind of feeding into their psyche. So it's interesting to see. But I do appreciate your take on that. And I think with that, we'll call it, man. We'll call it. It's a bit of a quiet one this week because obviously the start of the Club World Cup this Sunday. Obviously the transfer window is currently closed, but now that we've got the Frank appointment through the door, we're hoping that Paratici and Langer are working tirelessly to kind of bring the right level of quality to Spurs. I think next pod, what we'll dive into is a more tactical insight into how Thomas Frank plays, which I think is actually really, really interesting. There's lots of surprising stats that might put people a little bit back and actually might surprise them in terms of how adaptable he is and actually how he can support playing sort of attacking football. I feel like he really gets a bad rap, and I was doing some real deep dive research. He was very close to getting the Liverpool job.
Yeah.
He was
very
Liverpool job in the summer, you know. So I think when we get into it, and obviously hopefully a bit more on the transfer front, that'll be a good way to kind of continue throughout the summer. And with that, we'll bring this pod to an end. Thank you, Ohio. He's had to pop off. But also thank you, Yao, for coming on, bro. We are New Spurs Order. Please, as I said before, do not hesitate to interact with us on all social media platforms: YouTube, Twitter, X, Instagram, TikTok. And don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe all of our content. The pod will come out on Saturday as usual. For those who have locked in and listened to us on the live stream, thank you very much. Touchline Fracas on all platforms. New Spurs Order on all platforms. And yeah, here's to Thomas Frank. Come on, you Spurs.
Peace.